Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's narration of the web series The Human from a Dungeon. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 55, Nick Smith, Adventurer Level 7, Human American. Algebron went around introducing everyone. Basanoth, King of Bloodfey, wore the same armor as the Bloodfey that Algebron had summoned earlier, but was much taller and had a meaner-looking face. His chiseled jaw and low-set brow made it look as if he was permanently scowling. Horth, King of the Bonefey, had nearly identical facial features, but both his skin and armor were an off-putting pale yellow-white color. It took a second for me to realize that it was the same color as the sun-bleached bone, which makes sense since he's the King of Bonefey, I guess. Molderbrand didn't look like I had expected at all. His chin was rounded and his brows were high, giving him an almost childlike face. The pudgy cheeks and belly enhanced this effect, but his eyes were as serious as a heart attack. He stood shorter than most of the Fae, only surpassing Tartar's height by an inch or two, but he somehow exuded a commanding presence. I wondered how Algebron and Tartars were able to muster up the courage to piss him off. Molderan and Algebron were wearing the same outfit, pants and shirts that looked as if they were made of leaves, with intricate stitching that formed odd patterns that kind of hurt to look at. Tartar's outfit was similar, but her shirt was cut low enough that I realized she didn't have a navel. I also noticed that the patterns on her clothes forced my eyes towards her substantial cleavage. I sighed internally as I endeavored to look away from her as much as possible. Ylf, King of the Flower Fairies, looked exactly as I imagined a flower fairy would look. He stood at about 8 inches tall, and his facial features were soft and kind. His most striking attribute was his wings, which were every color that I could think of, in a pattern that reminded me of my mom's flower garden. He was wearing what could only be described as a onesie made of flowers, and when Algebron introduced him, he held out a hand to me. "What are you doing?" Horth asked. "Mortals like to touch things, and one of their favorite greetings is a handshake," Ylf explained. I gently took his hand and was shocked at how cold it was. Then I was surprised by the strength of his grip and shake. He shook for nearly 40 seconds before Algebron interceded. "I'm fairly certain that's too long for a handshake, Ylf," he said. "Really?" Ylf asked. "It's a very pleasant sensation, though. Such a warm hand, with a nice and firm grip as well. I could shake it all day." "We do have other matters to attend to," Molderbrand sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Oh yes, my apologies." Ylf released my hand and smiled at me. I nervously returned his smile, and then realized that I'd been eternally referring to these creatures as male and female. With Tartars and the other Fae, it was an easy mistake to make. They were practically caricatures of their displayed genders. Ylf, though, was much more androgynous, and this had made me realize my mistake. A few of my friends back home struggled to define themselves with gender, and would probably do much better than I in this situation. Some of my other friends would do much worse, though. Before I could start wondering how all of them were doing, I refocused on the situation at hand, and endeavored to avoid referring to the fair folk using gendered pronouns at all cost. "Now that we are acquainted, let's get started," Molderbrand said, gesturing to the chairs and tables. The seating rearranged to form a semicircle facing seats with matching tables. Algebron looked at me and gestured to the center seat. I sat, and Ylf took the seat to my left. Algebron sat next to Ylf, and both Tartars and Nash tried to sit to my immediate right. No, Tartars winked at him and pointed at the other chair. "You sit there. I'll sit here." But, Nash said, trailing off and looking at Algebron for help. "Honestly," Algebron shook his head, "Nash, you should let them take that spot. We should just be grateful that they're sitting in a chair and not on Nick's lap." "Now that's an idea," Tartars said with a wide smile. "No," I stated emphatically. Come on, Nick. Don't be like that. Uncross your arms and lean back so I can..." Molderbrand slammed a fist on the table in front of him. "Sit in the thrice-damned chair. Now." Tartar shot the king of the Archfey a venomous glare, but did as she was told. The two Archfey held eyes for a few moments before Molderbrand turned his attention to me. "Now then," Molderbrand started, Nicodemus Liam Smith. I understand you provided a name to both Algebron and, Tartars, and immediately afterwards they were transformed into archfey. I also understand that you are attached. Please elaborate on your interaction with the being you spoke with in the void.
Moldebran, I feel that's unnecessary, Algebron interrupted. I've already told you all about that interaction.
Yes, Algebron. You saw his memories when your blood mingled. However, when viewing memories in such a way, the view was crystal clear. A perfected recollection, if you will. One's perspective of one's memories are often different from the memories themselves, though. Nearly always, in fact. The higher ones are far trickier than even we, and it would be a simple matter for them to alter one's perception to grant different information than what actually occurred.
Huh? Horth and Basinoth asked simultaneously, then shared an angry glance with one another.
Moldebran sighed. To put it simply, with a little help from the higher one, Nick may have gleaned something from the memory that Algebron wouldn't have been able to.
All eyes turned to me, and my mouth went dry. What if what I tell them is wrong? What if they aren't able to get the answers they need? I can practically feel how powerful they are. What will I do if they get mad at what I say?
We were attacked by bandits, and I cast a healing on a friend of ours who was injured. I ended up using all of my magic and lost consciousness, I explained. It was dark, then it was bright, and I was suddenly naked. Then there was Cass, except she wasn't really Cass. Irrelevant details, Moldebran interrupted. What did the higher ones say to you? I assume it told you to do something. Yes, it told me that I was about to go down the wrong path, and I needed to see King Yssenrath, because some stupid Mer were about to do some stupid things. And also told me not to tell anyone.
Great. Now that you've chastised him about irrelevant details, he left out some of the relevant ones, Yulf said, sticking its tongue out at Moldebran. Nick, we'd like your interpretation of these events as they happened. Start from when you met the higher one.
Okay. We were both nude, and I thought she was in disguise, but she, or it, I guess. It said that my brain was trying to make sense of where we were, and that it was interesting that I saw it as my girlfriend, I explained. It told me that my brothers and I wouldn't know what to do when we got to Balasar, and that we needed to see King Yssenrath, or it would take years for me to figure out how to get home, because some stupid Mer were about to do some stupid things. It also called Yulk cute.
Not an inaccurate description, Yulf laughed. Go on.
It said that it's rooting for me, and that the reason it didn't tell me exactly what I should do to get home is because of a pact. Then its appearance changed, and I could see bright red chains binding it. I asked if I should tell anyone about it, and it said no, because it would lead to violence and bloodshed. I asked why it was approaching me. Then it explained that it really wanted to, and it would threaten to throw a temper tantrum if it wasn't picked. Then it told me to train, and I woke up.
Yeah, that sounds like a higher one to me, Horth said bitterly.
The details that the human remembers tell a story, Moldebran said. Nick saw the higher being as someone close to it, which...
Him, Yssenrath interrupted. Nick is a male.
Oh, I really don't give a shit, Moldebran snarled.
When it comes to speaking, one should do it right or not at all, Archfey King, Basinoth said.
Fine! He saw the higher being as someone close to him. Are you happy?
There you go, Yith grinned. Good job, keep it up. Moldebran muttered something that sounded obscene before recomposing himself.
Nick saw the higher being as someone close to him, he continued with an annoyed glance at Yith, which could indicate that the higher being is close to him. It could be acting as a protector or guide, the latter of which is somewhat more likely given the rest of the interaction. This higher being set Nick on a path that would lead to the awakening of the High Dragon, King of Elves, who happens to be one of our oldest allies. Then the higher one told him that telling anyone would lead to bloodshed.
Once Moldebran said bloodshed, all of the gathered fair folks' expressions dampened. Even Tartars, who had been staring at the side of my face, turned to look at the king of the archway. You don't think, Basnoth trailed off. I do think, frequently in fact. It's fun. You should try it. Mamoldaran grinned. Feck you. Maybe later. What's more concerning is that Nick clearly recalls the higher one saying that some stupid Mo will do some stupid things, and indicating that he needed to see King Yssenrath because of this. This was Nick's knee-jerk recollection when I pressured him earlier. I'm starting to dislike where this analysis is going, Holt said. It gets worse. We know how this higher one enjoys interacting with our world, and is currently under a pact, likely one of limited interaction, which means that the highest one is involved. Maybe even the highest one. May I ask some questions? I interrupted. Moldoran gave me the same annoyed look that he gave Yuth earlier, but nodded. What is the highest one, and why is bloodshed relevant? Beings that are far more powerful than the higher ones, and had a hand in creation of the universe, Algernon explained. They do not interact with anything except for the higher ones, and mortals rarely even come to realization that they exist. Mortals call the higher ones gods, but the highest ones are better described as such. And the reason that bloodshed is relevant is because fair folk don't bleed, Mamoldaran added. The higher one you spoke to would have known of this hearing. It would have known that your options would be to tell us the truth or try and avoid telling us anything, and subtly informed you of the consequences of either choice. We also have vague warning of stupid Mer doing stupid things. A previously incapacitated ally suddenly awakened by the same one bearing this warning. 2 mysteriously created Archfey, and a higher one under a pact of limited interaction. Which means that all of the higher ones are likely under a similar pact, Yith said with a slight frown. I think we know where Algebron and Tartars came from. One of the higher ones promoted them, but couldn't tell us that they did so. More importantly, we're going to be attacked soon, Horth grinned. And it must be a serious attack, if it wouldn't lead to bloodshed, with us left unwarned. We get to add to our collections, Basanoth returned Horth's grin. Nick, Nash, Yuk, we are done here, and you may continue upon your journey, Mamoldaran said, while he rose from his seat. Oh, and thank you for your time. You now have permission to wander these lands with up to 3 companions each, unmolested by the Archfey and the Fey they oversee. And the Blood Fey, Basanoth said, and the Bone Fey. Horth nodded. I can make no promises regarding any of the fairies, Yuth shrugged and smiled. Thankfully, we're mostly a friendly sort. Wait, can't we help in some way? I asked. You already have, Algernon said. You have made a choice that has allowed us to prepare for the upcoming attack. Algebron is correct, Mamoldaran interjected. Plus, you have things to do, and we don't know when this attack is going to occur. It could be days from now or years from now. Such is the nature of the higher ones. Nash and York rose from their seats, and I followed suit. York put his hand on my shoulder and gave a small squeeze. I looked up at him, and he gave me a small smile. Let's go, Nick, he said. Don't worry, they'll be okay without us. We're the king of the Blood Fey fought our dad and didn't die, Nash grinned. They're plenty strong. I let out a small sigh, unable to shake the worry that something bad might happen to Algebron and Tartars. Then I looked around at the assembled fairfolk and realized that a fight alongside them would probably be out of my league anyway. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said, I want to go with Nick, Tartars interrupted. He could likely use my help on this journey, and my aid would be more beneficial to him than it would be to Deep Wild Forest. Plus, I haven't seduced him yet. The clearing went silent as everyone turned to look at Tartars in disbelief. A few seconds passed before the Moldaran cleared his throat. You have no idea how much I'd like to say yes to that request, to be free of your annoyance for a time, the king of the Archfey said. However, I'm getting a very powerful urge to say no, and cannot pinpoint the source of said urge. A whisper, Tartar said sadly. I see. Well, sorry, Nick. Looks like I'm needed here. And can't go with you after all. Huh? I managed to reply. Go now, lovely little object of my adoration, she whispered, stepping closer and putting her finger against my lips, before I change my mind. The warmth of her finger barely registered in my mind, as I stared deeply into her eyes and saw how serious she was. We stood there for a moment while I thought about what to do. A smile began to creep over her face. I could almost see her mind changing, which made up my mind about what to do. I turned and ran back the way we came as fast as I could. End of chapter. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, Jon Creighton, W.R.E, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.